Hey guys, so in this video we're going to be talking about how strong was Mecha Frieza in Dragon Ball Z. Now I'm really excited for this one guys, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you down in the comments on your opinion. So stick around to the end because there's going to be quite a lot of panels, quite a lot of screenshots and evidence for you guys to digest. So stick around to the end and get the full conclusion of this question. So at first we're led to believe that Mecha was stronger than his organic self because Mecha Frieza is very confident that he can defeat Goku. He states he's become even more powerful. So Frieza didn't feel as though he needed to use his 100% power form against Super Saiyan Goku. And Mecha Frieza might have honed his ki and energy techniques through meditation in the time that he was being rebuilt and revived. So he couldn't do physical training, but he may have been doing some kind of meditation that increased his power level. And personally, I do believe that Mecha Frieza was stronger than he was on Namek. But of course, Mecha Frieza only used his final form rather than his 100% power form, but we'll get into later about that. Of course, Frieza couldn't ever sense ki, so he probably didn't have an idea about his power before and after, and maybe he overstated it versus his Namek self. At this point, Frieza of course didn't know about training, and he didn't know that Goku perhaps could come back far stronger than he was on Namek through the Yardrat training. And for Frieza there was no time for training because it took doctors 1 to 2 years to rebuild him, and as soon as he recovered, Frieza vowed to go head for Earth. So they got to Earth as quickly as they could, and this happened to coincide with Goku's arrival. But of course, all this talk about training was retconned later, as when Frieza actually did train, his power grew thousands of times in Resurrection of F in just a few months. And imagine if Frieza had done this earlier, everyone would have been just killed in this scene. Future Trunks, Super Saiyan Goku, it would have been the end. On a side note guys, consider subscribing to us if you're into Dragon Ball, and hit the bell so you don't miss any uploads. And actually, the best way to stay notified is by following me on Twitter, as sometimes YouTube notifications are lazy like Beerus. So to summarize all this side of things, was he stronger than his organic self? It was stated in the manga that Frieza by himself, and that's the bias guys, Frieza himself stated it, in chapters 135 and 136, he was saying he is stronger. You'll see in the thumbnail for this video I put 10 times Namek in question mark. Now, there are some people that believe that Mecha Frieza was 10 times the power that he was on Namek. And I'm going to prove now in evidence from the manga, from the anime, and from a guide that that simply was not the case. That isn't true. So let's get into it. So firstly, Gohan said that Future Trunks had the same power level as Goku on Namek. So that would mean that Mecha Frieza wasn't much stronger because Frieza was beaten so easily by the power of Future Trunks, which was the power pretty much of Namek Goku Super Saiyan. And this is shown because when Frieza went all out against Future Trunks with his most powerful supernova, Future Trunks just controlled it with one arm. And then later on, Future Trunks was no match for post-Yardrat Goku. So we know that Future Trunks was around the level, give or take, plus or minus, the level of Namek Super Saiyan Goku. And actually, if you look at the statements made in just the anime only, it seems like Toriyama or Toei were trying to tell us that because of Frieza's arrogance, his confidence, Frieza was actually overstating his power, because in episode 120, Frieza says, those half as strong as they ought to be die the soonest, okay? And then Future Trunks responds and says, yeah, like yourself, Frieza. So Future Trunks was mocking the mecha form of Frieza as the reason for his downfall. It was his arrogance, Frieza's arrogance, that cost him his life. Frieza was overstating his power because the doctors had said he would be stronger, so he assumed he was that much stronger, and he's a very arrogant character in himself, Frieza, so he wouldn't ever admit that he would feel he's weaker than another being. So Toriyama was showing us that, you know, giants, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And another piece of evidence was actually Gohan said to Yamcha that Frieza's power could increase a lot higher than what they were sensing when Frieza was in his final form alone, not his 100% power. So that means that Frieza was comparable to his 50% power Namek self, Or it could even be that Frieza was comparable to his 100% power form in the Namek Saga, because Gohan actually witnessed that for a brief moment before Goku came back. Either way, it just proves that Mecha Frieza wasn't much more powerful than he was on Namek. But then we have this line. Now this is the one I want you guys to really pay attention to. It says here in the anime, this is anime only, remember, this is not in the manga, but it says that Frieza, when he was about to shoot the supernova, he was using 10 times the power or the energy that he destroyed planet Namek with. He was about to use that on the Earth. Now, if you look carefully at the words, you can see that this doesn't mean that Frieza was 10 times the power that he was on Namek. It's only saying that he was using at that moment 10 times the energy in the blast that he used to destroy Namek. And of course, we know that even Vegeta at 18,000 power level, way back in the Saiyan Saga, can destroy a planet, because we saw him destroy Alia and other planets with the other Saiyans. So it doesn't take much power to destroy a planet. So this statement merely means that he was using more energy trying to destroy Earth and put into that supernova, but it definitely was not his full power. And it does not mean at all, guys, that Mecha Frieza was 10 times as powerful as he was on Namek. No way. So I can see why this confused people and caused some confusion. In other videos, people mention it as being the proof, but it's not that at all. If you look at the words, you can see clearly the meaning. And you might ask, well, why didn't Frieza use his 100% power form in his mecha state against Future Trunks? Well, firstly, he didn't really have time, but let's hypothesize that he did. So if he did have time, let's think about Mecha Frieza's design. Now, his parts were meant to be replacements for his organic tissue. So it's definitely possible that if Frieza tried to pop out his muscles, expand them out, it's possible that the metal parts themselves couldn't expand. So that means, and he may have actually decided that in himself before he fought, that he's like, well, these things are pretty tight, I can't really push them out, I'll come apart. So that means perhaps he couldn't access his max power. But to counter this point, you might say, well, Future Gohan didn't lose much power at all when he lost his left arm. But I believe the reason for that was because his body was still 100% organic. He didn't have any metal attachments on him. So with Frieza losing a lot of his organic tissue, he wasn't able to therefore hold as much ki and power, because metal parts can't do that. It was just a repair job. So that means that Frieza in his mecha self, if he trained, he couldn't really get stronger, because his metal parts are fixed in power. They can't increase in power. They haven't got the capability to do that. So Mecha Frieza is capped in his power level. He couldn't really get any stronger. But then you might talk about, well, what about the Earth's androids versus Frieza? Why were they able to get much stronger than Frieza? Well, that's because the Earth's androids were modified humans, and Dr. Jaro was trying to create very powerful beings versus scientists who were just trying to purely revive Frieza to a livable state. Maybe the operations he had were rushed, but these were supposed to be the best scientists in the Frieza force. And logically you think, well, wouldn't a massive advanced alien force have better scientists than Dr. Jaro? But I believe it's just because Dr. Jaro had a very different motive to what the scientists did in the Cold Clan. And once again, it goes back to what we were saying about Frieza's parts. The metal parts may not have been able to hold ki like organic tissue. So his ki holding tissue was still damaged. So that means he couldn't hold the same ki he could before. And of course, Frieza believed what he was told, that he would be stronger through these metal parts. But how did he know what they were saying? You know, the scientists, how did he know what they were saying was true? And the very last point I want to mention, and this is another point of evidence, and whether you regard this guide as evidence or not, in El Manga Legendario, the Spanish guide, or the Spanish Daizenshu, if you will, for Dragon Ball, it states that Mecha Frieza, in his machine self, failed to exceed the level of Super Saiyan and was defeated by Trunks. And of Future Trunks, it states, his strength was comparable to Goku. And whilst the guide isn't clear on which version of Goku it is, either Namek or post-Yardrat training Goku, either way it means that Mecha Frieza wasn't as strong as Namek Goku. So overall, guys, I want to present my opinion and say that Mecha Frieza, I believe, is probably stronger than the Daizenshuu says in the Namek saga. So I would place him about 120 to 150 million. Goku Super Saiyan on Namek was 150 million, but I believe he was somewhere falling short of that, even with his mecha enhancements, because of all the evidence in the manga and the anime. And the three most prominent evidence points were that Mecha Frieza was easily beaten by Future Trunks, which is supposedly around Namek Goku's power level, as Gohan stated. Second point being, Frieza couldn't go 100% power in his mecha self because supposedly the mecha parts couldn't expand, which is a bit of headcanon. And then thirdly, Gohan said that Mecha Frieza was weaker than his Namek 100% power self because he said that he could get a lot stronger than what they were sensing, which he didn't in the end, because perhaps he couldn't. Phew, that got a little bit complicated, guys. I say we take a short break and enjoy watching Frieza dancing. Anyways, guys, how strong do you think Mecha Frieza was when he arrived on Earth? And also, do you, like me, wonder about the possibility of his 100% power? Let me know down in the comment section below. And also, if you missed it, check out this video in the corner on how Mecha Frieza was made. There are some interesting Easter eggs in that Dragon Ball Z scene that you need to check out. Thanks, guys, and if you enjoyed the video, press that like button and I'll unlock your full potential. No, I really will. And subscribe to expand your knowledge of Dragon Ball and get coverage of Super. And lastly, check out the following videos of mine coming on the end screen. Thanks! Kai Kai!